Quiet on the set.
Terrifying stuff.
All right, so that was the trailer for Leave, which came out this year, 2023. Ooh, wrong one. Ooh, wrong one again. There we go.
There you are. There
uh,
we are.
which, as you can see from the trailer was just as boring as the movie was.
Well, I
I
mean,
wanted
if
to talk throughout the entire trailer.
I did, yeah, I was biting my cheek to not talk through the trailer. But before we jump into it, we're Cinematic Suffering. You're Jason.
And your Clay.
That's right. And we are Cinematic Suffering. This is what we do. We shit all over the arts, basically, and specifically horror movies and horror video games. Today, it's 2023's Leave, which is directed by Alex Herron, written by Thomas Moldestad. I got to be real careful because it looks like Molest. Anyway, the film stars Alicia von Rittberg, Stig R. Dam, and Herman
Doing good, dude.
Tublerone. Adam Tublerone is in this. I can't pronounce the names. Sorry. They're too Norwegian and I'm too American. So,
No, it was a very good attempt, though. I was very impressed with that.
no, thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. So it's one of those movies that by the trailer, you see from the first part of the trailer, and I don't know when we'll release these videos if we're gonna do them in sequential order, or if we're gonna maybe we'll put this one out first. Who knows? But by the time people see this, and you see the trailer for Leave, that you think, oh, well, there's like a theme. I'm sorry, I didn't complete my thought. There's like a theme that's been going on. It's been kind of a metal theme that's been unintentional, but
Yeah.
maybe it's just something that we've kind of gravitated to. I by this time we're recording this, we've already done Goblin and we've already done Veronica. And so now we're on Leave, and Leave starts off, from the trailer, you think, oh man, this is going to have something to do with the Norwegian black metal scene.
Yeah, every they kind of loaded every scene that the movie had to offer to lead you to believe that you were going to see something black metal, Satan. Yeah, you
And
you are being lied to.
being lied to right up front. I mean, it has a little bit to do with it at the very beginning. And we also see a moment of Gaul from Gorgoroth appear in just a weird little walk away cameo at the near the beginning of the movie.
I wonder if he knew he was in a movie. Like, is there a camera? What's that all about?
It almost seems like that, right? So that's where I was like, oh, are we gonna hear, are we gonna hear some Gorgoroth songs? Are we gonna hear anything black metal, maybe some new black metal songs that we never heard of before? But that was not the case through what turned out to be an hour and 42 minutes,
46 minutes.
46 minutes
Yep.
of just people talk about how good slow burn movies can be at times, but sometimes slow burn movies don't go anywhere. And when you get to the end of that fucking burn, you wish you just went up in flames, literally.
Yeah, and I mean, granted, it's a very unfair standard, but like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is a slow burn movie. I loved every frame of that movie.
Yep.
But Quentin Tarantino's a master, and our director Alex Heron is oddly. What's really ironic about this is the guy is a music video director, and he's worked with like Blink 182. He's worked with the Deftones. He's worked with Baby Metal. He's worked with like some big names in the industry. So the guy's got talent, but it doesn't really translate to a feature film, especially one that's in the horror thriller category.
Yeah, that's it's a good point. And it's not like the movie wasn't technically proficient. I mean,
That looked pretty.
it looked pretty, and it was it was filmed well. But it's just the pacing of it was very slow, and the expectations that you see from the trailer that pull you in initially were not given, and then you're kind of fooled. I mean, not that I could tell immediately from the names that were being presented in the credits at the very beginning that, oh, this might not be. I thought it was going to be like an American film or something like that, and yeah, it turned out not to be. But that's okay. It's just funny to see these movies explicitly point to, hey, we're in the USA right now, as
Yeah,
they'll
like
drape like American flags in the background. We're in America, and that's what this movie started off as. Like this baby is found in a cemetery by a cop, and the baby is wrapped in this blanket with all these satanic up into what and upside down crosses, and the cop who finds the baby, I guess, decides just to make it his own.
Yeah, he just, which is a very interesting law in Norway. Actually, is that you find a baby, you keep a baby. I think it's on the books. It's like that was what's funny about it. Like the film opens with this cop finding the baby that you mentioned in the graveyard, and then we cut to her all grown up, and then he's raising her. I'm like, I don't
Yeah,
think that you could just have that baby that you found. I think that
you
there's
see,
some
folks,
legal steps to go through.
in the U.S., it's not like in Norway, because as we know, we've already established the law of adoption there is this: if you find a baby, it's yours. So that's why in Norway they do have baby locks. They put like baby locks on their wrists, so when the mothers go into the store or something, make sure the babies aren't lifted for someone else just to claim. But
Yeah, I don't want
America,
somebody to carjack my kid.
there are rules for and regulations for, but the thing was, it's like we were in disbelief too, because when that scene came up with it looked like the same guy, but we were like, Is that the cop at the beginning who
It
found her?"
It's kinda hard to tell because the initial scene, it's really darkly lit, so you can't
Yeah.
I'm still not 100% sure. I don't know that it matters. I mean, it's like her yeah, the only black dude in the film was the cop and then her adopted father, so I don't
Right,
know.
yeah, we're just putting 2 and 2 together, maybe that's some weird, maybe some subconscious racism on our part, but,
Not really, no.
I swear that's the same guy. It was the same guy, he found the baby, and he adopted the baby, and, again, like, in the background, you see American flags hanging,
Yeah.
and and they're trying to establish, like, they're in America.
Oh, and it's funny because the film you could tell that the film wants to get out of America as quick as possible. Like, get her on a plane. Like we see a montage of our lead character getting on the plane. What was her name in the film?
Leave.
Leaf. That was her name. Is
Yeah.
Leaf. That's how the title makes any sense.
I
Which
think she was going by another name, and then near the end, the climax, as you will, it was revealed that her name was Leave, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Yeah,
climax being your time is up.
so I this is one of those things that if you guys see the watch through that Clay and I did, which you can see,
Highly suggest it.
yeah, which you can see on our Patreon page, um, you'll see that we're talking a lot through the movie because there's a lot of dead space and a lot of moments in time where nothing is happening. People are just talking for the benefit of talking. And this is I didn't miss this. She told her father that she was going to school, and he said, "Yeah, stay away from them boys." And that seemed to be a common theme. And so instead of going to school, she boards a plane for Norway because she found some
some some clue that her mom is the lead singer of this band there.
she found, like, a flyer in, like, some belongings that she had, and I guess she's been looking for her real parents this entire time on an investigative journey, which
Yeah,
we
and
don't really know until she explains it a little bit, but
well, and it's one of many very vague, very weak, like plot devices that send her on her way. And it was just like I just had to talk through it. I mean, that's what we do, but like aside from that, it was just like just painfully, boring is a lazy term, but I can't think of anything else that it's the worst thing that you can be as a horror movie is boring. In my mind, you can be dumb as a bag of hammers, just silly, poorly acted, just kind of technically terrible, but you can't be boring. It cannot
right,
be boring. It's and unfortunately this movie kind of quickly falls into that. Just the pacing is just glacial.
yeah.
And like the plot has no forward momentum, and whatever there is immediately lost. It's just
Yeah,
it was a slog.
and it was one of those movies where, everyone t I don't I would have been better off if this movie had the natives had just spoken their native language.
Yeah.
I think this story could have stayed in Norway. We didn't even have to go to the US. In fact, the way it's mentioned in the story on why she was in the US is totally implausible.
Yeah.
totally dumb, and, it threw me out. Even if I my disbelief wasn't suspended for most of the movie, that part just threw me way out. Um,
Yeah, just this obligatory, well, it's gotta be in America or Americans won't like it. No, Americans won't like it because it's bad and not scary. That's why we're not gonna not like it. I mean, I can't speak for every horror fan, but I know you're this way. Like, I love horror movies in all cultures if they're good, you
yeah,
know, especially in other cultures because you get kind of a window into their culture, like, you know, whether it's whatever, it's Polynesian movie, African movie. There's been some really good, you know, horror movies from all countries. You don't need to put it in America. We're not.
right.
I don't know where you're getting this memo from that we have to see like iconic American stuff in the background to be
Yeah.
into it.
Yeah, I don't understand that. I mean, especially with horror fans, I think horror fans themselves are relatively open-minded because most horror fans can sit through the schlock that comes out and either hate it or love it, but they still saw it and they endured it and they suffered, you know?
Yeah,
Um,
and I mean, which is apropos that that's the name of the podcast because it's like if you're we've talked about this before too, is like if you're a horror fan, you've tolerated some crap. Like
yeah.
you have gotten through some bad movies.
Yeah. I think, for this, the way it should have started out, just my non-expert opinion, is that it should have never gone to America. They should have just either stayed in Norway or just a neighboring Scandinavian country or European
Yeah.
country. It's much easier to explain how she got that kid from one part to the next instead of having to go through a whole flight over the
Yeah.
US to drop a baby off in the graveyard and then fly back. You know,
Well,
it
and the film is mired in that kind of bad decisions that just ruin any kind of tension that you could build because like throughout the movie she goes like there's a farmhouse that she eventually ends up at that's got all the that's where all her family secrets are kind of kept and there's a some people living there but she goes to the house she leaves the house she goes back to the house it's just like you're just
yeah. Yeah, it's just the weird decisions that were made, it I don't know. As we move forward into this the plot, whatever it may be, yeah, she discovers that, oh, you're kinda freezing up on me back there. Oh, there you are, there you are. Oh, you're moving too fast, your camera can't pick you up. There you go. Ooh, much slower. There you go. Slower. Uh, but yeah, but, you know, going back to the plot, whatever it is, that, you know, she finds this flyer, she flies to Norway, and then, you know, sees this I mean, I wouldn't say a black metal band, I just say a metal band because it didn't sound very black metal when they're
I don't
playing.
I don't remember, did you actually hear the band, right?
Yeah, it's a good question.
I don't remember that's not sticking out to me
Yeah,
like, I don't remember actually hearing the band, but,
yeah, it's weird because, she's coming from America, and this is why I say it should be just leave it in Norway because for one, newer movies when they come out like this, they don't have subtitles. I bitched about it in the movie the entire time,
yeah.
and they had heavy accents. I mean, not that they were speaking English fine, but it was very low in the mix, and sometimes you just
Yeah.
couldn't discern certain words, and then I remember just trying to catch up and thinking, "Okay, this is what they're trying to do. This is what they're trying to say." So,
I
yeah,
don't know
I
if
was
it's a component. I have the same trouble. I don't know if it's a component of just putting on a few years, you know, or just the fact that newer movies like, you know, like I can't hear them. It's
yeah.
I have to have the sound the subtitles on too, just because people seem to mumble and like you say, the audio mix is always weird and
I think I now I read an article about this. Why the sound in movies is so low is because sound before the invention of the flat screen television, the what we have today that most people use, the high definition, they had room for speakers in those big, tube operated televisions that we used to watch,
Mhm.
and that meant that those speakers in those televisions could project sound a lot better because they had the, audio capabilities in them. Now, they weren't 5.1 surround sound, but they were sound nonetheless coming out of those old, tube televisions. With the advent of flat screens and the newer modern technology, there's not a lot of room to put large, high fidelity, like, sound speakers in those things. That's why they recommend getting, like, a sound bar or
Right, and that's I mean, and that's what we have, and I know this is a wild non sequitur, but it's kinda like what frustrates me about that then is, like, you have to be then an audio engineer to get the goddamn thing set up right, because
Yep,
with us, it will blast your eardrums out if there's any music,
yep.
anything bassy on, and then when everybody's talking, it's in those and it's
Yeah, yeah. Well, especially in if you got the bass up really high and a person's got a huge bassy voice, that's all you hear is the bass in the voice when you
Oh,
go,
yeah,
you know.
it'll peak your speakers out,
Yeah,
it's friggin' annoying.
yeah. So that's why I bitched the entire time about not having subtitles. Now, the only time they did have subtitles was when they were speaking Norwegian, and I thought, there's the solution right there. Just speak Norwegian.
Just speak
I
the
can read, I can follow the movie then. And then when we talk, we're bullshitting, because that's how it has been in the other movies that we've had where I can see the subtitles and we can still bullshit, but I can still kind of keep up with
yeah.
what is going on.
Well, and it's a great there's a lot of times, especially in movies like Veronica, there's a lot of great moments where it's like, "Did I hear that right? Let me read the subtitles to confirm that that's the nonsense that came out of this person's
Right.
face." And almost
Um,
wish for that in this one. Like we've and I know people aren't going to watch these in any kind of consecutive order, but like Jason said, we've done Goblin first, then Veronica, and now this one. And oddly, like the two most laughable movies that we've watched so far were in a lot of ways more entertaining than this. And probably accidentally in some ways. They definitely weren't as technically, competent, but
right.
but like when it comes to raw entertainment value, those were better than this one, unfortunately.
Yeah. I go back to Red Letter Media, when they do their best of the worst
Yeah,
series that, that's we're kind of like in that third movie best of the worst scenario right now. Because if
yeah,
if we voted on these three films that we've seen so far, uh the best of the worst for me would probably be Veronica. And
yeah.
then second would probably be Goblin. And then this would be the worst of the three that we've seen. And this had a higher budget, was better filmed, and it still falls more flat on its face than the other two.
Most definitely, and I don't know if IMDb is correct on this, but if the numbers that they gave out are correct, this film lost a bucket load of money. Like it
Oh,
didn't
wow.
even, yeah, like it, like I think like well, I don't I'm terrible at math, but it was a lot. Like the exchange rate, is not that different between Norwegian money and real money, as they'd say
Right.
here in America. And I mean, it didn't make it. Not that it was a hugely expensive movie, but it didn't even make that back.
Yeah.
So
Um, Going back and rethinking and,
sorry.
just because we watched this not, like, 2 days ago, like, on Friday, right?
Yeah.
I mean, no one has any time reference when they watch this, but we watched this fairly recently. We tried to put out the pod, like, a little bit after we do the watch through,
So it's
and just
fresh. And
yeah, it's still fresh. So I was just rethinking, could this movie, even though we haven't really talked about this part yet, could this movie have survived on its own without any of the supernatural elements that they dropped into it at near the very end?
I mean, yeah, but it wouldn't have been any better or worse because those things were almost a non-topic. Like
Right.
they're inserted into the movie just as kind of a way to make it a horror thing, but they're never explained,
Mhm.
and they totally fall just flat on their face when it comes to kind of creating any kind of tension in the movie.
Yeah, I thought the same thing that, if, looking back out on it now, you could leave out all the supernatural stuff and the movie would have made it just as much as sense as it does with it, you
It
know?
would have been some half-assed, tale about somebody chasing down her birth mom, and then she meets some people that may or may not be bad, and why
Yeah,
they're that bad is
yeah, it tur
confounding.
yeah, it would have turned into, like a thriller more than a horror film, but it kinda already it turned into some weird rapey thriller, you know near
Which
the
is just
middle,
some
right?
lazy writing. I mean, it's like, oh, we need to put our protagonist in peril. Let's have her almost get sexually assaulted. But
Right.
and you're so not invested in it, and it wasn't done in a really compelling way that to really draw any tension out of it. Plus, I mean, this is going to sound terrible, but the protagonist is just like, she's not unlikable, she's not likable, she's just not, she just is. Like, there's nothing, the film never gives you any reason to kind of learn anything about her or understand why she's got such a strong compulsion to go and meet her birth mom. I've known a
Right.
lot of people that don't know their birth parents,
Yeah.
and frankly, they don't. I've never met one that would go to friggin' Norway to talk to them.
Yeah,
Not one.
yeah, especially the circumstances that she was found. It was like, obviously, you were not wanted. That's what it seemed to me. So, but adoption stuff, otherwise, that yeah, it just the lengths that she goes, to do this is just odd. And because
It's
and then
confounding.
it leads into some weird stuff, like, when she finds who she thinks is her mother, who's the vocalist of this band, in this bar. They just immediately link up and become somewhat friends, and then this vocalist, or whoever this is, says, "Oh, your mom was burned alive by her boyfriend who was in a black metal band, and because he learned that she was pregnant," or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of the finer details that slip past me in this. Like, the way my brain operates is that if something doesn't engage me, it's just purge, purge. So it's a
Yeah.
good thing that we're talking about this as soon after the film as we are, because I'm going to literally forget that I've seen it in a month or so. It just didn't make a strong impact, which I probably repeat myself here, but like, another thing that bugged me about this stylistically is the director is a music video director. The score is just negligible,
Yeah. We
you
we heard
know.
nothing until until the ending credits. We heard nothing that was
Yeah.
metal, even remotely, you
Oh
know?
yeah, or even ambient music that would kind of set the tone. It's just like, here it is. I'm trying to search for my family, but like, I don't know. I don't even know if like a real plot synopsis is all that necessary. We can do it, but it's
Well, the
you
plot
know
synopsis, they say, is what is it? A young woman tries to find her origins after having been abandoned as an infant at a cemetery wrapped in a cloth with satanic symbols, but as she gets closer to answers, a malevolent spirit is telling her to
to leave.
leave.
Yeah.
Um, and the Alicia von Rittberg, she's a German actress. So
Right, with a
we're trying to figure out the accents. We knew the Norwegians, but her accent was confounding because we knew it wasn't American, and we thought it was sounded, Scottish, didn't it?
or
There's a
yeah,
point
it's
where I
a
thought,
or yeah, or maybe Irish, Scottish, or something like that. That was another odd choice. Like, you've got a German actor in a Norwegian film that's putting on like I guess a Scottish, Irish, Scottish accent. We can tell the difference. I couldn't tell it coming from her. That's just to make
yeah,
that
yeah.
clear.
Yeah, I mean, again, I got no problem with accents,
I got no problem with those
but
with those folk.
if they had just left it in Norway, just left it, and then had her come
Well,
in, I don't know, she would have adjusted. I'm sure she knows multiple languages. She knows English, she knows German. I'm sure she probably knows Norwegian, and she's but
Well, it's always disappointing too, because like, if you just judging off the trailer that we watched in the beginning of this movie, if that had been the movie, if what had been presented had been the movie, it would have been a much better movie. Like, if there was, because I made some kind of crack about Superman, like, oh, the swaddling clothes, or suggest some kind of dark history or some kind of
right.
power. She could have been the daughter of Satan.
Yeah.
She could have been like, I don't know, a sacrifice that somebody had stolen, and now the demon is loose in the world, because
Yeah,
there could have been some
or
kind of
even
plot device.
a sacrifice that was stolen that was meant for just some cult. Maybe there wasn't even a real supernatural aspect about it. It's just some cult that was, all in the underground, and they're this person took their sacrifice away, and now they're forever searching for her. That's why she was so separated from the country, because her mother didn't want her to be anywhere near it, but she knew if she was still near the baby, she would endanger it, so she had to go back. Anything. We could rewrite this thing 100 ways.
Yeah, but I mean, and that's the part that's always disappointing about it is a lot of the rewrites that you kind of conceptualize in your head would have made a better movie and probably wouldn't have been a more expensive movie. Like
Yeah.
if when it comes to horror directors that make a good, I mean, well, shit, look at the original Evil Dead. They had like $38 and
Yeah.
bubblegum money or whatever to make this thing, and they
Right.
made one of the most iconic movies in horror history. You don't need a ton of money to get the audience engaged, but there's
Yeah.
got to be something to bring them into it, and they had nothing.
Yeah, and you mentioned about, stylistic choices, that a director of a music video should be really into stylistic choices, because no one makes most music videos are not straightforward. They tell a story, or they're just some weird um visualization of the music. I will say,
Yeah,
like, I don't know if you heard of Marcus Nispel. He directed
no.
he directed a he directed a shitload of music videos in the 90s, and that includes like Nine Inch Nails, and
Okay, yeah, yeah.
and then he came in 2003-ish, and directed the first remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I love that remake. That's the
What
only
that was the one with Jessica Alba, right?
Not Jessica, but Jessica Biel.
Jessica Biel, I'm sorry. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember that the camera really liked to be focused on her backside, which didn't hurt
Yeah,
my
yeah.
feelings
It
either,
didn't
you know.
hurt. I mean,
And
definitely.
that was an effective movie, and, like, I'm not a big fan of Rob Zombie's movies, but you can tell that, like, his ADHD as a, as like as a musician and a guy that's in that world was like, "Okay, something's gotta happen. There's
Yeah.
gotta be something visually loud. There's gotta be the music has to be audacious." You would think that, like somebody that's in that world would bring that into this, but instead you get this just bland, goes nowhere,
I'm just wondering if someone just had a thumb on them, just saying, "Hey, you're gonna do it this way,
I don't
and
know.
don't put your crazy shit in that you're used to." I don't know. I don't know. So I
Don't
haven't seen.
Deftones this thing all up on.
Right. But anyways, going on with the story, at where we're at, I she goes and meets these people who are introduced as her grandfather. Oh, no, no, it is, these other people that she just kinda randomly meets. She's introduced from the singer that she thought was her mother, to these other people now, who
Right,
are not related to her, but they know her grandfather. And they in
right.
turn I think they in turn, or the singer, tell her about the history of what happened to her mom. Her father is now in a mental institution in Norway, and
That's right.
the story was, and we see a brief flashback of someone dragging a woman by her hair, pouring gasoline on her, and setting her on fire. And that's what
Yeah,
we think. We think he's the killer. We think he killed her, and we're brought into this family now that kind of keeps that same story, but then it starts losing any kind of momentum it had from that point, because then they start talking about, oh, she's the person she was talking to goes, oh no, I'm not related to you. I'm your mother's friend's husband's girlfriend, or some shit like that. And I was just, when we were doing the watch through, my head was,
yeah,
and I
like
was
it
like,
was.
we don't fucking care. We don't
Like
care.
it's unnecessarily convoluted. Like, like a plot like that needs to be straightforward. It needs to get you into the thing, and then you're in the thing. Like, they needed to get her to the house. Everybody in the house is crazy, and they conduct satanic rituals or something, but none of that happens. She's just like, and they're constantly going from one MacGuffin to the other. Like,
Yeah.
okay, now I need to find this book. This diary is suddenly holds the key to everything. Look, the color index. That's what we need. That holds the key to everything. Like, she gets obsessed with her mom's diary and goes back several times for it. It's just it. God, it really is painful. Like, any narrative choice that's the wrong one, that
Yeah.
takes you out of the movie and just makes it a labor to watch. That's what they went for.
Yeah, and then we were talking about, her finding the diary, and these are all little stepping stones, these little pieces of bread that are leading us on, supposed to be leading us on this trail, this story, and then they just drop in an apparition here, an
Yeah,
apparition there.
like sprinkling of apparition.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm still not clear on why she's being haunted and what's going on here. And yeah, she wants to get this diary, which is, completely in a Norwegian, so she can't read it. But it turns into this weird thing. Yeah, she goes in and out of this house. I mean, there's a lot of stuff we're skipping over because a lot of it just didn't make any sense. And
Yeah.
I remember just yelling at the film when we're watching it. I was like, "Come on, do something!" And I was getting angry. And
Yeah, yeah, it's frustrating. Like I said, boredom is the greatest sin a horror movie can make, and like everybody, I assume that most if not all filmmakers go into a project with the intention to make a good product if they're not just cashing a check.
right,
I don't know where this one fell in that.
yeah,
Like you said, maybe the director had some greater vision. Maybe he's just a visual director and that's what he's good at. I'm not too familiar with his other work, but it's got to at least be, kind of decent if he's worked with these people.
yeah.
Like, these are bands that you get the top guy, and that's
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I thought, when I first saw the trailer, that, oh, maybe the director has some link to the black metal world, kinda like that Lords of Chaos movie,
yeah, yeah.
where the director was actively involved in the black metal scene, and, even though that's a story that's been, dramatized for a movie, most of it is kinda true, but it's still. I thought we are gonna get a perspective of a person who's in that scene, and that's what we're gonna see is more of that, and, yeah, we're just fooled into this weird satanic murder group? I don't, yeah, because they were part of some kinda group. The thing is we jump forward. Let's just jump forward here.
Sure.
She meets this, I guess, what would be called her grandfather. He introduces as himself as his grandfather, and then we get to meet her cousin. I guess this cousin, her cousin, is just this young dude. He just looks like a poor man's version of the dude who played It. And
Yeah, yeah, the Skarsgård.
the Skarsgård kid, and he's just giving these creepy smiles, and but he's never really introduced until a little bit later, and you're like, "Who is this guy? Why is he at the table eating dinner
Why is
with
he
him?
here? Yeah.
Why is he here?" And it's only just for him to become violent with her later,
Yeah.
and and it comes out of nowhere where he's just stealing shit. He wants to they break into the house because she wants to find this diary, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna lift a few things while I'm here." I'm behind that. You're already breaking in. You might as well take shit,
Yeah.
and
Steal the
so
silverware at that point.
yeah, and you just start stuffing forks down your pants. And, but she has
Whole
a huge
platters.
yeah. She has a huge problem with him stealing, and that erupts into some kind of weird argument, which totally takes a 180, and he starts assaulting her, almost sexually assaulting her, which results in her beating him over the head with a pan and him dying on the floor. And I was
Yeah, I think that I think that the term for that is kind of like it's a Russian spy. That's what they call like when it's an unnecessary thing that's been inserted into the movie. There's a
right.
ton of Russian spies in
Yeah,
this. It's like a serial killer in a shark movie. Like you
right.
got to pick one. Yeah, and also footnote: there's ghosts. Like really, but are there ghosts? I mean,
Yeah.
or is it just some? Yeah,
Well,
it was.
that's another point of the story that becomes more convoluted as it went on, because at that point, because then it starts being proven that I guess the dad didn't kill the mother, that story was totally untrue, and I'm not sure how we exactly come to that truth.
They just let him out of prison.
They just let him out of
This
prison. That's right.
and then he comes in and there's a kerfuffle. Like literally the movie is so confounding in its plot developments that you can't even you can't keep track of what's going on, and you can tell that it's not worthwhile if you did keep the flow chart,
Right, yeah,
active, that would be necessary. And
yeah,
I'm sure it's like this for a lot of audiences. If you don't know what's going on and the movie is just progressing, and then you're getting farther and farther from the what's the hell's going on question, it gets frustrating. It gets really, like, you get mad at the movie. Like, what
yeah.
the fuck is going on in this thing, man? And
And that's where we were at near the end of the movie, that we were like,
yeah.
"What the fuck is going on?" Because now it not only turns out she wasn't burnt alive, the husband or boyfriend was totally innocent this entire time, but she's been kept in the fucking basement of this, farmhouse
Yeah, mom's in the basement.
for
She's
18 fucking years, I'm assuming, because that's how old the girl they're trying to portray the girl as. S
like, not to victim blame, but if you tried to escape and this is the amount of time it's taken your daughter to go to college and grow up, I've been pooping in a bucket for 18 years.
we don't I mean, I don't think it was I mean, maybe people will correct us or maybe I can just go look this up on my own, but it was never really explained why she was locked up there in the first place. Why that she was kept alive, why the
What's
story
to be gained,
who was fucking burnt because someone was burnt because they said some church burned down and some girl was burnt and then they have this that's what the ghost is. The ghost is this burnt up ghost with this horrible wig on, by the way.
Yeah, it looks like a Party City wig that they
Right.
just set on fire.
So, it was so and I think they were trying to say that it was the mother's twin sister, and it was the grandpa and the weird family that burnt her alive and burnt the church down. But why?
Yeah, there's
No fucking clue. I mean, I was just sitting there scratching my head going, "Okay, that's the ghost?" W
it was
and then it finally the what was the other ringer that when the name of the movie is called Leave?
right.
And what was it? The her dad was in the mental institution, and he was like, "Leave, leave." Oh, or was that the climax? I can't remember. All we know is that her real name is Leave, Lieve or something like that.
Levy or something, yeah.
Yeah, no, not Levy, but Liv, something like that.
Yeah.
It just no, no, that's your real name, Leave. That's what they said in the movie because she's like, I'm leaving," and he's like, "No, no, that's your name, Leave."
I want you to stay, leave, or leave, stay. I mean,
Faja, I'm so confused.
oh, if I was the girl's dad, I would be more pissed off that she's spending mega bucks to go to fly from America to Norway and get no answers and almost get in danger. Not that I felt like she was ever really in danger.
Well,
It made
yeah,
a lot of mistakes. This film. Like, I mean, you know,
the climax, yeah, the climax though, you talk about, being in danger, excuse me, that, the father
Faja.
who like the Pasha who is released from his mental institution arrives at the farmhouse,
which
after Leave discovers her mother is been locked in this basement the entire time,
Which I
and
guess he just convinced the people holding him in prison. In prison, I know it's Norway prison's probably a little softer than here in America, but you can't just leave. They're like, okay, but come back by curfew at 8
you got till 5.
to prove your innocence and to try to unweave this Gordian knot of a movie.
And, yeah, so so one guy comes down who we've seen before. He was the husband of the other couple. I know whoever's listening to this is like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Like,
I
why
really
are we?
don't know. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. So he comes down and, Leave chokes him out. I'm like, "Oh, okay, she's choked him out, she killed him." No, he gets up and he walks away.
People aren't good at staying dead in this movie.
Yeah,
I think she did manage to kill the guy she clunked on the head for trying to get all rapey with her.
yeah, she just can't choke people out very well.
No,
But yeah, the husband finds them at the farmhouse and they get in a big he gets in this fight with the grandfather. And I'm not gonna dissuade, I'm not gonna uh, ageism here, but the guy is an elderly man, and yeah, he's tall, but a good swing of a a bonk on the head, you push him a little bit so he stumbles over some
Yeah.
shoes and he'll fall down and break his hip, or something like that. And
Osteoporosis will just take
yeah,
care of the rest.
but this guy beat the shit out of this dude, out of the younger guy who's the father, and stabs him too. So Leave runs out of the house, I think with her mom. Oh, yeah, her mom
Yeah,
gets the
she
mom out of the
rescues her
house.
mom.
Yeah, and they're running and running, and the mom just says, "Nah, I'm kinda cool. I'm just gonna sit here."
I know, I've gotten used to pooping in that bucket. That's my bucket.
She's like, leave me," and I'm like, "Oh, why? It's like the highway is just right over there. Let's
Yeah,
go,
like,
let's
I
go."
can see there's a FedEx truck or a DHL truck, I guess, would be, like, right there. We can just, "Can you give us a ride into town?" Not that Leave couldn't, ride or drive her into town. She'd been back and forth to the goddamn house 3 times, you know?
Right, she knew the place like the back of her hand by this point.
It'd be like if you could come and go from the Evil Dead cabin as you wish, like, it's just like, it's interesting watching movies like this in a way because it's kind of a cautionary tale for any young filmmakers. It's like, if you're gonna do a horror movie, I'm not saying dumb it down because 'cause we're not dumb people, but, you gotta keep the plot straightforward, keep it simple, like,
Yeah,
like, okay, this is the motivation of the main character, and we don't deviate from that. We don't
yeah,
throw in a bunch of ancillary bullshit that you don't need. You got to get your character from here for this reason to this place, and then at the place the crazy thing happens, the craziness is amped up, and then where there it resolves itself. Like, I
yeah,
know that that's simplistic, but it works for a reason. That's the
yeah.
reason that a lot of horror movies fall into that kind of hierarchy or whatever.
Right, yeah, and then not to say there isn't a place for, intellectually stimulating horror films, because they're out there. One that comes to mind is Hereditary,
Oh
and
yeah,
Hereditary
classic film.
and it goes from point A to point B to point C in a sequence that makes sense, but there's also some they also every scene in that movie has something is meaningful, right?
Right.
Nothing is filmed that is meant to just throw in a red herring, or there may be one or two, but they're meant to be there for a reason. So by
Right.
the time you're at the end, you're at this madness and this insanity that what the fuck am I seeing? Turns out demon worshiping cults, and it gives me goosebumps because I just love the film so much.
Oh, it's a classic horror movie, and yeah, it's funny that you bring it up because, like, you watch a film like Leave, and it's everything. It's okay, like, it's not everything that Hereditary is, if that makes sense.
Right,
Like,
right,
everything that Hereditary gets right, like, engaging characters. There's not a single throwaway character in Hereditary. Every single one of them is just expertly acted, but also they're
right.
great characters. Like this, there's okay, they're very interesting people. They don't have an abundance of characters so that you don't, get confused. Like, it's mom, dad, two kids. The dog's a character, and
Yeah, and
grandma's a character, even though she's not in it. Like, everything has meaning, and there's a point that's being made. Not
right.
here. If
They
there
yeah
is,
they
it's lost.
I'm trying to see what was the running length of oh, it's 2 hours and 7 minutes. So, you know,
Like, about like almost 20, like little under 20 minutes more for Hereditary.
right. And there's some I only bring it up. I bring it up because we know Hereditary is the superior film, but both of them deal with subjects of cults and sacrifice, and but one just
Family.
family, exactly, and one is elevated above the other because the other one is lost in some miasma of what they're of I don't know if they're trying to be intellectual about certain things in Leave, but it just turned out to be boring, too long, and I frankly can barely remember how it ended. I think she runs through in the forest. She abandons her mom pretty much
Yeah.
because her mom's like, "Oh, go ahead." She's like, "Oh, okay," and she takes off in the woods, and then
The entire reason that I'm here to begin with.
yeah, the entire reason you're there to begin with, you're just abandoning her because she doesn't want to go any further. But it's like the director could or someone could have said, "Hey, maybe we should give her a little bit more motivation to get her off her feet and just keep going." Something.
Yeah. I
But
mean, it's
Grandpa was after her, So grandpa's still alive, and he's shuffling after her
with
still.
his 2 bad knees and plantar fasciitis and
And, yeah, and I'm so hoping
gout.
this, young, spry 18-year-old woman can get away from him, but I think it oh, no, she instead of getting away from him, she ambushes him in the forest with a block of wood or no, just a barely a plank, and he's yelling at him before she attacks him. So, of course, he turns around and knocks her down, and I think
Yeah,
I kinda blanked after that because I was
I
just like,
I
"Why?"
I know I did because it was just like, like the film has dared you to care about it for throughout its whole length. It's
Yeah.
just it's giving you nothing. It, it was, yeah, it was pretty bad. Like I found myself like thinking like, well, the graphic design in the beginning of the movie was good, and it's a bad movie if you have to like talk about the motion graphics to to find something to be complimentary on it. Like it looked good and it looked okay. It was serviceable. I mean,
Yeah.
the thing is, like, if all the core components had been better, we would have forgiven lesser cinematography.
Right,
That's
yeah.
the thing. It's like a pretty package doesn't matter if there's nothing inside.
Right. And, I'm blanking on the ending. It did have an ending.
It
Definitely
ended,
definitely ended.
or we wouldn't be here. We'd still be watching it.
I think it ends with just like a little tidy wrap up of everyone the bad guys are dead. The ghost, whatever it was, is at peace, and, she's reunited with her biological father and her adopted father, and then it ends with an actual fucking metal song, which
Yeah, which
kicks in on
wasn't that good.
it wasn't that good, but at least it was, like, something with guitars.
There was at least metal in it. Yeah, that's it. So many missed opportunities. Like I said, you could have done so much more with all the same resources. Like it wouldn't have even like a lot of times people complain, well, if the budget was more, like, no, this one it didn't need more budget. It
Yeah.
needed just a better script. It
Yep.
needed, like and I'm not even going to insult the actors because they weren't given anything to work with. It's like, I mean, I don't think anyone answered like, who is this person? Who is she? Like,
Right.
why?
Yeah.
Just and not no charisma to carry the movie.
Right,
Again, I'm
yeah.
not blaming the actor, but Alicia von Rittberg, but they gave her nothing to work with.
Yeah, and she's competent. I mean, most of them seem like they're competent
Fine.
actors. Maybe the vocalist, lady vocalist, she was a little hard to get through, but,
Jinx. I was calling her Jinx. Like she reminded me of like the archetype of like the Lucifer or Coven, like as that
okay.
female kind
Oh,
of
yeah, that's right.
lead singer kind of character. Which they didn't do anything with her either. She could have
No,
been a very cool character that they did nothing with.
she was just a point at the beginning of the story just to point our main character to something else, and then that
She's just
person
an exposition guide. Like go
yeah,
here.
there
She
a
gave her the quest.
ton of exposition. Um, I mean, there's some points in movies where exposition is needed, and you
Of
kinda, like
course.
but you have a lot of better made movies put those points of exposition in there subtly, some of it a little bit over the top, but at the time sometimes you just need that exposition there, but not through the entire movie. The
No.
entire I mean, we were constantly being explained to like I said, we were complaining about, who was related to who, and I was like, this has no even that's not part of the exposition. It was just like meaningless things that were
Yeah.
let's get more into the background. It's like, well, maybe we should have thought of that before getting to this point in the writing stage of the script. Maybe we should have explored the background and
Yeah,
uh
there was just too much, like, it almost took you in a 180, like, or in a right angle just away from where you were going. It's just, and after you do that to the audience too many times, we just stop caring. Like, I don't
yeah,
care. I don't care. I mean, like, and there was nothing, there was none of the, kind of the base kind of trappings to keep a horror movie going.
yeah.
They didn't even have any, um, not that it makes a good movie, but like they didn't even throw us any nudity, gore scenes, anything that like the more infantile stuff that
Yeah,
most
there
horror
was no
fans
gore.
gravitate to,
You'd think you'd have more gore. And
or
yeah,
just some
it's things
tension. Like,
right, yeah. Like yeah, what was I thinking? The we get the typical atypical jump scare every once in a while, um, where the apparition suddenly shows up and points at her or boo or
And it's zero impact. It's like,
and again, it doesn't make any sense for the context of the film,
no.
so I Leave, I was expecting I don't know why I was expecting more from Leave. I think
Well, it's
maybe
because
because
the trailer was pretty good. I wonder if the director directed the trailer, which he would be better at
right.
than a long form, feature.
Yeah, and the trailer is, it looks like it's directed to people like you and me,
Yeah.
where look what we're putting in here, associated with the black metal, and they're filming it in Norway. Holy shit, I'm in, dude. Let's
Oh
check it
yeah.
out.
I mean, I was sold immediately. That's the one I said when we were suggesting movies to one another. It's like, let's do that one. And
Yeah. Yeah, I was on
red
board.
herring.
But, they can't all be wieners.
No,
Not like Veronica and Goblins have been winners, but they were entertaining.
You could, I mean, in the right crowd, you could recommend them. I wouldn't recommend this one to anybody.
Yeah, or if you're gonna watch it with someone like we did, 'cause I
Yeah,
think
well, I mean, watch it with us,
yeah, yeah, you
obviously.
can watch it with us, through the watch through the way that we have. I
Yep.
think this is probably our best quips and rips on it and riffs on it.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that's one of the things that you get into when we actually see a movie that we really love. We're probably going to be hard pressed to say anything because if you're engaged in a movie, you don't want to like make a bunch of dickhead comments
Right.
throughout the feature.
But Leave had so many moments of, nothing being said, pointless scenes, long drawn out exposition that, we had to occupy our time, and we did it by sometimes just yelling at the film.
Talking about completely unrelated things to the movie. So yeah, that's Leave, everybody. You should watch it with us, but don't watch it alone. Watch it with us.
Yeah, yeah, watch it with us. You can see it on Patreon. Uh, we'll have this podcast. We'll put the podcast up on our YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also we'll put it up for availability through all your favorite podcast listening methods, whether it's Spotify or Apple or whatever. So you
Yeah.
can also listen to this through that. You can't see the lovely visuals that we have going on here.
Oh yes, yes. Look at
Uh,
that.
Create
Oh, they're so pretty.
Clay did all these the logo and all the drawings. So appreciate all your talent with that, good sir.
No problem. It's fun to work on that stuff. One
And
of these days, I'm gonna do a how-to video on how I did it. That'll be riveting.
and it's just you banging your head into a wall.
Like, oh,
Fuck,
why did
they're
I
coming
choose
out.
art as a career? This is terrible. I'm so hungry.
Oh man. Okay, well, I guess that's it. I think we're gonna try to get guests on here like every once in a while to, they won't watch it with us, but they'll watch it on their own. They're gonna come in and give us their thoughts on it. They'll just be friends of Clay and ours or Clay and mine.
Yeah.
And hopefully they're entertaining. If they're not, we'll just cut them out entirely. It'll just be
Yeah,
us
yeah, you're
talking,
out
and
of here, buddy. Yeah.
you'll I'll cut them out entirely. You'll just hear Clay and me talking, and then complete silence as the other person is supposed to be talking, and then we'll laugh.
And a little blank square where they would have been. I'll draw a little graphic of them not talking. You're just there, a little placeholder for them.
Oh, it's amazing. But yeah. So that's it. Cinematic suffering. We're out. We're doing this, baby.
Yeah, we appreciate y'all sticking with us. We'll have a lot more content soon. Like, subscribe, send us panty pictures, whatever.
Oh, that's lovely. That's so lovely. All right, guys. Thanks.
Peace.
Bye.